is going on, guys? We are back again with another Wi-Fi battle. This is an underused match against PinkSausage from Twitter. Epic name. But looking at the team preview, the main thing I'm afraid of is the Kingdra. It has a super effective move on almost everything on my team. So that was kind of poor team building on my end. This team really does not like water types. But I do have a squad of some pretty beast motherfuckers, and you know, we're not afraid of no seahorse. So let's go ahead and hop into the battle here. So my original plan was to lead off with Donphan to set up rocks early, but then I figured he might probably expect that, so I decided to lead off with Darmanitan instead, as he actually leads off with his Seahorse. So he doesn't want to take damage early, and he's going to go ahead and switch directly into his Fortress, which was a risky play, but obviously I wasn't going to go for Flare Blitz anyway, so I get a U-turn off on the weird, like, steel walnut thingy, and this allows me to bring in whatever the hell I want, and I decided to bring out my Donphan. I know that I can win the matchup against this thing and perhaps end up with Stealth Rock on my end. I know that we can both Rapid Spin, so that's kind of why I decided to bring in Donphan. I know he's going to want to set up all his bullshit, and I can just go ahead and, you know, spin that shit away. So he sets up his Stealth Rock, I set up my Stealth Rock, and at this point, I'm just going to go for an Earthquake just to kind of scout out how much damage it's going to do. It obviously does a decent chunk with a critical hit, and I'm like, hey, I'll take it. So now he's going to go ahead and spin. He hits me in the face with this weird little peg things coming out of his head. It definitely doesn't do a lot of damage, but it is going to get rid of the rocks on his side. So I'm not really too worried. Honestly, I'm just going to go for a rapid spin of my own here to go ahead and get rid of the rocks on fucking my end. So it's going to get rid of those, and he actually predicted me to go for Stealth Rock there, again, just trying to set him up immediately after he spun them away, but he really had nothing there to spin away, so he's just kind of over there like a damn top, really just making no progress. So I'm going to go for another Earthquake. I really want to just get this thing down to the point where I can set up my Stealth Rock one more time, and to the point where he won't be able to spin them away. So I know that this thing, I didn't see an item early on, so obviously he is going to have the Custat Berry. It's going to let him move first, so he's going to go ahead and go for the Explosion, as this allows me, I predicted him to go for the Explosion, so I know there's not going to be a target on the other end, so if I went for Rapid Spin, it wouldn't do anything, but this does allow me to set up my Stealth Rock, and that's going to be pretty damn nice. So we finish off the matchup with my rocks up. I do have rocks on my end still, but that's really not too big of a deal considering Donphan does still have a decent chunk of health left even after the critical hit explosion. But yeah, so now he's going to bring in the freaking Celebi. And I'm like, I don't even like onions. Get this thing out of here, man. Celebi's weird as hell, but I do like Celebi. You don't see it a lot, and it's kind of interesting. So I'm going to bring in Slime Shady, expecting him to potentially go for, like, you know, a grass move so it'll activate my Sap Sipper. But I'm assuming he predicted that, and he just goes for the Earth Power, which is not even going to do anything to me, honestly. Gudra's a fucking beast. With Assault Vest, this thing can handle special attacks. You can literally take like 150 of these from this damn Celebi. So he's actually going to stay in, and he sets up a Calm Mind, which was kind of questionable seeing how well I took that before. I don't feel like him staying in and setting up here was probably the best idea, so I went for the Draco Meteor, actually expecting him to switch out. I could have gone for the Fire Blast, but I figured he would kind of want to get the hell out of here with this Celebi, but unfortunately for me, he actually stays in, and with the special attack drop, I'm not going to be able to do a whole lot to this thing. I'm assuming he does have Recover as well, which could be kind of bad. I am losing health slowly here as he goes for another Earth Power. It's going to do a decent amount of damage, and then he gets the special defense drop, and then I miss a Fire Blast. So it's like, well, fuck me, right? That's just everything against me. So that's kind of annoying. I'm near half, and I really want to conserve Slime Shady for later, so I'm going to go ahead and switch out here, and I decide to go into Donphan. So my plan was to basically just sack off Donphan, so that way I could have a free switch into whatever I want against the Celebi. So this thing's going to go for another Calm Mind as I brought in Donphan, but really I'm not too worried. I'm just going to stay in here. I click Rapid Spin on the off chance that he might just go for it again. Really, I'm not too worried about this thing setting up Calm Minds due to the fact that I do have a Darmanitan with a Choice Scarf in the back of my team, so as soon as something dies, I'll be able to bring that dude in and pretty much just roast this onion. So he goes for a Psychic that is going to finish off Donphan. Unfortunately, I'm not able to get rid of the Stealth Rocks on my end, which is kind of annoying, but honestly, not the end of the world. So Celebi's over here eating his leftovers just with the calmest mind in the damn world, but Darmanitan does not give a shit about that, so I bring out Shofu. Gonna get hurt by some rocks, but he actually decides to stay in and takes a Flare Blast. So that is gonna be some sauteed ass onions right there, and that's a dead Celebi. So that is one pretty big problem taken care of. Although, unfortunately, I do take a lot from the recoil, and then the next time I have to switch in, I'm going to take Stealth Rock. So Darmanitan's life is not going to last too long, but at least I got rid of that thing. So He now brings in his freaking Doge here. He's going to intimidate me, and obviously I'm locked into Flare Blitz, so I don't want to stay in here and mess around. I do want to save Darmanitan for a little bit later, so I decided to bring in Tits McGee. And Tits McGee is pretty much prepared for everything this Doge wants to throw at me. I can take at least 2 hits depending on what kind of set this thing is. He goes for the Morning Sun, which shows me he is probably defensive. And so he's going to get all his health back there. And Shiny Arcanine's actually pretty damn awesome. Haven't seen one of those in forever. But he's going to switch out because he does not want that thing to die. And he makes a pretty risky play here. He goes into the Kingdra. And this probably wasn't the best play because there's not really a Pokemon in the game that likes switching in on a fucking Sheer Force Nidoqueen. So it's going to do a lot of damage there with the Earth Power. And I'm definitely going to switch out here because I'm going to be outsped and then killed by, like, you know, a Scald or whatever this thing wants to throw at me. So I decide to go into my one thing that likes to absorb special attacks. Goodriss, like, let me just absorb that water real quick. Unfortunately, I do get the burn. I mean, it's obviously expected. Anytime you see a Scald, it's pretty much like, okay, well, I'm burned as fuck. So I do at least get 1 attack off on this thing. I know I can live an Ice Beam considering I'm specially defensive as Titties. I'm able to go ahead and throw a Draco Meteor at this thing. Luckily, I don't miss. That kind of would have been pretty shitty. But Slime Shady is able to break through, and a Draco Meteor is going to kill off the Seahorse. So that's a pretty big relief. Honestly, seeing that thing go down is like, okay, I can potentially have this game in the bag relatively easily since that thing's dead. But I'm going to die to my burn myself, so we have a nice little empty field here. So looking at the remaining Pokemon he had, I kind of expected him to go into Ampharos, expecting me to go into like my Feraligatr or something. So I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to go into my Nidoqueen. And it actually worked out perfect for me because he does actually go into the Ampharos. And Tits McGee is like, hell yeah, that is just pretty much a nice breakfast for me. So Ampharos is actually going to stay in here. He doesn't really have any options switching out in, you know, taking a fucking Earth Power on anything else. So he's going to go ahead and get his Fabio hair nice and flowy. He's just a fucking L'Oreal commercial right now, as I'm going to go for an Earth Power, and that is going to take out the Ampharos. So critical hit is going to take it out, but I don't believe that mattered. After running damage calcs, I'm pretty sure that was going to kill either way, depending on what set that thing had, unless it was like max special defense or whatever. But now he's going to go into his Slacking, and Slacking is a pretty scary motherfucker. This thing is quick, it hits really hard, so I don't really have any option to switch out. I decided to sack off Tits McGee because I wasn't really looking too useful for the rest of the match there, and I know that as soon as I'm able to switch something in, he's kind of fucked because this thing is like loafing around like a, you know, loaf of bread or whatever. So I decided to bust out that late game Sceptile, as he's going to go ahead and get the hell out of there, potentially just save that Slacking for a revenge kill later on. That's really all those things are kind of good for. They're really good revenge killers, but he brings out the Arcanine, is going to get hit by some rocks, and then he intimidates me, but Sceptile's like, I'm not afraid of you, Doge. I'm a special attacker, so your intimidate means nothing to me. So I'm going to go ahead and Mega Evolve, bust out the Christmas tree, and it is time to hit this thing with a nice Focus Blast. So I did click Focus Blast just on the off chance he wanted to stay in with the Slacking, but it's going to hit the Doge pretty hard, at least, and this allows me to go for a Dragon Pulse after outspeeding this thing, and that is going to not kill this thing. It leaves it with like 1 HP, and I was like, oh shit, this is actually not good at all, because after the Morning Sun, it's looking like obviously another Dragon Pulse isn't going to kill it, but I have to kind of stay in here just to get as much damage as possible, as he's actually just going to go for another Morning Sun. So here's where I'm kind of weighing my options. It's looking like he's just going to stay in here and keep going for the Morning Sun until he's at like full health. So I decided to make the tactical decision to go ahead and switch out into my Feraligatr here. So I was really banking on the fact that he wasn't going to attack here. Potentially, if he did attack, it would have done enough to knock me down to the point where I think an Extreme Speed would have been able to finish me off. But luckily, he does just go for another Morning Sun, so Gatorade basically got a free switch in there. And this allows me to go ahead and bring on the Waterfall to this thing's face, and that is going to kill the Arcanine. So I do get hit by the Rocky Helmet, it's not too big of a deal, and really glad to see that thing go down because bulky Arcanines can be the fucking death of me sometimes. But now he brings out the Slacking. I know that this thing is just going to go ahead and do his routine with the Retaliate, so I'm just going to go for an Aqua Jet just to get as much damage off as possible. Before I die, I do get hit by my Life Orb because Sheer Force isn't going to activate there because it doesn't have a secondary effect. This team actually does have 3 Sheer Force Pokemon, but the theme on this thing was Sheer Force, just because Sheer Force is a fucking awesome ability. But yeah, so Feraligatr goes down, and this allows me to bring in my Darmanitan one last time, and I'm going to be able to obviously outspeed, and a Flare Blitz is going to take care of the Slacking. So after the recoil damage, that is pretty much going to be the end of the match there. So that was a pretty damn good when it came down to the last couple turns. Honestly, that Arcanine could have fucked me up. But thank you guys for watching. Go ahead and hit that like button if you enjoyed, and I will have more Wi-Fi battles up as soon as possible. Peace out.